challenges. But with a lot of thank you, I really think we should come together. If you look at Berlin or you look at London, the biggest travel exhibition that we have every year, we seem to be having Kenya, Uganda, South Africa all separately, Seychelles, Zimbabwe. Why don't we have one great Africa stand and we show the world what a great experience Africa is and to build a brand? So we need to invest, we need to put funds together, we need to put leadership together. We have fantastic resources, marketing and branding leaders who can combine with all partners and make the brand more successful and have a clear strategic plan, as my fellow colleague, the Minister of Zimbabwe and the Minister of Seychelles are saying. Let's build a plan, let's invest in it, and let's put milestones of success. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you very, very much. Please, madam.
So I think that the problem of me is an easy one. It's easy to say we need more money to do X, Y, Z, but in 2015, in the age of technology, you can do with smart investments in a little. Started an entire company with a $10,000 prize, and we've done a lot. And so I think that the number one thing that the industry needs to do is embrace technology. And good technology, because that's what people are using, that's what's driving change, that's what's driving disruption, and a disruption on the narrative on Africa is what's necessary. You have to completely disrupt what the world thinks and put the positive in its place. And so I think whether it's mobile technology, everyone here stood up and said they use a mobile phone, you know, whether it's video sharing, photo sharing, down to actually using technology to create better systems. I think a firm embrace and investment in technology would be a huge unlock for this industry. It's one of the, Africa as a region is one of the places where tour operators and reservations is very, very manual. And if I'm a traveler who can go to Europe or Australia or Asia in 10 minutes, and I have to physically pick up the phone to book a place in Africa, I'm going to spend my money elsewhere. And so I think as a number one, that's a place where investment needs to happen and can really unlock some things. I think the second thing that's kind of right up there and kind of goes hand in hand, addressing youth unemployment through the tourism industry. Africa has the highest youth population, but many of them are unemployed. And these people are some of the most creative people on the planet, and they're having to go to Berlin or to the UK or to the States to get training and find jobs because people aren't paying attention to them here. I'm very honored to sit on this panel as a not that young person anymore, and you need more voices like that. There are people right here in Accra that are doing amazing things and bringing people to Ghana, but they're not getting recognized, and it's happening in other countries as well. So I think as much as you can inspire young people to out, what does it take to be an operator? What is the flexibility of being an entrepreneur in the tourism space? I think those things are really, really important. And then finally, I think hosting a session for ministers or tourism boards to actually compare strategies and to understand what each value proposition is and understand what's working and share those learnings and best practices will help get people out of their silos and into a better way forward.
Brilliant, well said. And I think what I loved about what you were saying is this is not about cost. Because honestly, no one's ever going to get the we want. We will always complain about there's not enough money. What we need to raise the currency value of is conviction, not budgets. Because when the conviction is there and it's connected with the right technology, full-minded people, regardless of how old they are, how young they are, that's when we can shift it. Tebe, your last point.
Yesterday, I came to come to Ghana yesterday, and I stopped at the business class lounge, and it was in English. I went to the bathroom. The bathroom sign was in English, French. The bathroom sign was in English, French, and Mandarin. And when I saw Mandarin, I got confused and concerned. I got concerned because in 1992, China had 1 billion invested in Africa, and in 2015, they have about over 300 billion invested in Africa. Now, there's no problem with anybody bringing money into Africa. The problem is when we now also give our entire agenda to them to run our continent. Because if you look at Africa, the 4 primary languages of Africa: English, French, Arabic, and Portuguese. I would expect to see that in every African country. I don't have any problems with any other continents and countries coming here. So the key problem is that we borrow too much, and when we borrow, we don't write the person who's borrowing us. So to me, that's one big area to look at. Even in itself, which is majority by non-African. Now, there's a big problem because as Africans, we have the wealthiest continent in the world. And what we don't have an ability to convert wealth, that natural wealth that we have, into money that we can use for our own agenda. Now, every year at Brand Africa, we publish the top 100 most valuable brands in Africa. 80% of those brands are non-African. What it means is that 80% of the African agenda is not run by Africans. Now, as Africans, we need to, if Europe has got intra-Africa trade of 70% and Africa is only at 12 to 15%, it means we as Africans don't even trust ourselves and don't trust each other when the wealth is right here in our continent. To me, those are probably that we need to look at. We need to stop borrowing, and if we do borrow, the terms must be on our terms. We need to brand our own products and services to reflect who we are. And third, we need to cooperate as Africans.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Excellent. So what you're all telling me is it's very clear that the how, in terms of how we move forward, is really much, as was said earlier, we need to know our continent. We need to explore the neighborhoods in which we live on the continent. We need to know one another's growth strategies, our growth challenges, our growth. We can support them across the continent itself. We need to know our resources, and it's not just about the funding. What are the human resources we have behind travel and tourism? What is the technology? What are the brand strengths as destinations that can rub off onto their neighbors? What can we do to unlock borders, psychological borders, more than even the physical borders? And importantly, we need to know our potential as a continent. So my last question to you before lunch, I need to know from you all, 1 year from now, when we all get together somewhere on this beautiful continent, and I see that volunteer the Seychelles for next time. When we all get together next time, what is different? How have we shifted as a continent in leading Brand Africa forward together? Honourable Minister St. John, please.
Thanks, Anita. I think we can dream this working session here. The point made about us being together in a trade fair is extremely important. Let us show that we are a united continent of 54 states working together and showcasing Africa as people come in. But Africa also has today 4 or 5 hubs, airline hubs, where we fly from or we can fly from. But I would hope that by next year, our own hubs in Africa, be it South Africa, Kenya, Addis, that have clearly the impact because they are well connected where they are and they have got the airlines in place, for them to be ready to receive us as we come through. Every tourism professional looks for the easiest way for them to connect to the world. We are not ready to facilitate the arrival of somebody, for them to be able to transit and take off or spend the night, then we miss the opportunity. We've seen today the hubs of Dubai or Abu Dhabi and Qatar done well because they go out to transit into their countries. Africa needs to grow. Africa needs to respect each other and say, yes, we know there's a professional coming through or a journalist. Treat the person with the dignity that they need and use them more as the hub for them to travel in and out of Africa instead of us all going to 1 or 2 hubs. Finally, I think we should find a way to have that little map of CNN does so well on their board that is there standing up, that we all say that we are part of Africa. We all think we are. The world doesn't know that we are. I often get asked, and I know I made you laugh last night. I did an address in Uganda when I first became a minister. And when I went to the floor without thinking about it, I just said, Africans must learn to work together. And everybody looked at me to a degree that somebody very important in the country asked me, but where are you from? And I said, from Africa. And it didn't occur to me that we still look at colors. We still look at what is an African today. An African doesn't mean black or white. An African means that we are from Africa and our heart is in Africa. I think if we do this, if we manage to do that before next year, we will be on the right path to have a real brand Africa that we are all proud of and that we all defend every time we travel around the world. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Honourable Minister Mzembe, please.
1 year from now, I am going to you. Because we can see Pratt and Pratt and Pratt. If the message doesn't get home, that Agenda 2063 must translate itself into a brand proposition, okay? A brand Africa position. Then, because document itself, and I urge all of you, is beautifully written, but it does not convert this penalty kick. And that penalty kick is brand Africa. What unites us, our strength. How do we want to be known? How do we want to be perceived out there? That's what branding is all about. It's not about what we wish here on this panel. It's about whether we're able to translate that into those small practical steps that the international source markets can understand about us going forward. So 1 year from now, and in fact, by the end of this month, as I was talking to the commission, I said, we want to come to the AU. We have been pleading to come to the AU. We can't meet here or meet in Colombia in September before we go to the AU. We must meet you. You must understand what African tourism ministers are thinking about with regards to this subject matter that we will. Secondly, 1 year from now, those little things that we can do without money, that just need policy revision, like declaring destinations open. Visa regime revisions do not require money. They require a paradigm shift. They require us to move. I often ask people when they say the children of Israel moved from Egypt to Canaan, and I've tried to locate Canaan in Israel. I can't see it. I see Canaan in Africa. So it means there's something in our mind that we must deal with, which is called paradigm, that we must introduce to ourselves first before we even reach out to international source markets. Why should I worry about getting a visa to another African country in this day and age, honestly? When we define our Africans, we should see this African Schengen being the future of that which will secure our travel trade, and that is intra-Africa trade. And it starts with just a policy revision. Heads of states agreeing that within Africa, we are not going to make our lives difficult. We are going to facilitate free trade. And that's what Vision 2063 speaks about. So we want to see that practical step 1 year from now. I thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Anita. I'd like to conclude is we have nearly 60 million people coming into Africa as tourists. In 1 year from now, we will see a much higher number of tourists coming into Africa. The best way is to brand Africa, to market Africa, is for all the airlines, Ethiopian Airlines, Kenya Airways, South African Airlines, Rwanda Air, Air Morocco, all the airlines in Africa, we need to work together and we need to partner to market this beautiful, great continent. The aviation industry is giving millions of jobs to all the leaders in Africa. For students in universities are coming on to work in the airlines. The airlines are looking for pilots. Some of the well-paid jobs in the world today is the pilot careers. So for me, I see in 1 year's time, leadership in the aviation business. For example, today Kenya Airways flies 42 cities in Africa. We need to work together. We need to work together with all the tourism bodies to give great opportunity so everyone can fly. If everyone can fly and if it's affordable, all the airlines make this a great experience, then we can bring the world more into Africa. So my challenge is for us to build stronger partnerships after the conversation and discussions, and to wish everyone success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Please, Sherry.
I think in a year from now is true collaboration. So instead of us, coming to Ghana and meeting in the hallway and having some tea and then we don't see each other until the next meeting, I'd like a year from now to see that, the Seychelles and Kenya Airways collaborated to do some amazing event in the Seychelles with me. But seriously, I think all this capacity is in this room right now. And so for me, I'd like to see concrete results out of these sorts of meetings. I think the second thing that I'd really, really like to see is ministers actually coming to this meeting. So having, more than the 5 or 6 meetings, there are 54 countries. Let's have 25 ministers at the next UNWTO Grand Africa meeting. I think that would be really exciting.
Great point. Teve, please.
I said earlier that 70% of the continent is under the age of 30. So I think what I want to see next year, 1 year when we come back here, is half the room will be the future of Africa, which are the young people of Africa. The second thing is 1 year from now on, I don't want to hear any discussion about Brand Africa, about Africa being held in Madrid, in Colombia, in all other places, because we've got 54 exciting and amazing countries in this continent where we're discussing Africa and leading the African agenda. The third thing I'd like to say is I love what Fela Kuti said, the great Nigerian. He said, I must identify with Africa, then I'll have an identity. And most importantly, Africa has a future and the rest has a past.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Well, we have 9 very clear to-dos between now and next year, which I will hold you all accountable to. I think what's come out very clearly from this panel is that Brand Africa exists only one place, and that is Africans. And until we accept that and embrace it, only then can we actually mobilize our actions to show that we actually do have unity physically, to create the actions that are going to unlock the barriers through aviation hubs, through partnerships, through bringing young people in, new opportunities to demonstrate everything that we have, and ultimately making sure that practical steps are taken to give other people confidence about the fact that we as a continent are moving ahead. And join us, because if you don't, it's only those who don't join that are going to end up actually losing out on the opportunity. We are the industry that brings the positivity. We are the front door that allows people to really get a sense of who Africans are, not just what they think they are and said. So with that, I'd like to firstly congratulate the Honourable Minister of Tourism, Culture and Creative Industries in Ghana and the UNWTO for bringing these 5 great champions and voices of the Brand Africa together, to our lovely messengers, Honourable Minister St. Ange, Honourable Mzambi, to Chris, Sherry and to Teve. Thank you for being as articulate as you have been. A great pleasure to in terms of what's going to happen a year from now, we know. In terms of what's going to happen an hour and a half from now, we need you all, please, back in the room after that, after lunch. But with that, please join me in thanking a great panel. God bless and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you, Anita. Ladies and gentlemen, you all agree with me that Anita and her distinguished panelists have done great justice to the topic of challenges and opportunities confronting Brand Africa and its impact on tourism. One more round of applause for them, please. Thank you. Now, these announcements. For all the international delegates who don't have their coupons, please contact Sandra. Sylvia. Okay. Contact Sylvia for your coupons. And the lunch will take place on this floor. When you troop out, you turn right and turn right. You'll be shown the place to have your lunch.